I'm calling the meeting to order. We're going to start with the moderator's motions. These are some procedural things that we do at the beginning of every meeting. I ask if there's no objection that the meeting dispenses with the reading of the warrant, the constable's return of service, and that the warrant, and that the moderator not be required to read the warrant articles verbatim, but may refer to them by number and or subject matter. Second, that the moderator may extend the floor to town management and staff and other non-voters, provided they must first be recognized by the moderator. And third, that the moderator, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 15, be allowed to declare a 2/3 vote rather than taking a standing count. That one actually doesn't matter tonight because there's no 2/3. So hearing no objection, we'll proceed under those rules. This is the 2024 special town meeting, and let's get into it. The first article regards budget transfers and reductions for fiscal year 2025. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the vote taken pursuant to Article 7 of the June 25th, 2024 annual town meeting by reducing the following FY 2025 omnibus budget line items as follows. Reduce Police Department by $20,000 for a new total of $1,071,999. Reduce the Fire Department by $38,111 for a new total of $293,365.31. Reduce the Roads Highway by $80,000 for a new total of $651,835. Reduce Town Buildings by $57,000 for a new total of $190,606. Reduce Regional Building Program by $33,000 for a new total of $42,843. Reduce Finance Committee line item by $15,000 for a new total of $5,000. And to further change the total amount raised and appropriated from $6,629,784.13 to $6,286,672.94. And to further change the amount transferred from ambulance receipts reserve from $520,000 to $620,000. And to further change the total identified in the town's omnibus budget from $7,149,784.13 to $6,609,672.94. Motion made, Maureen Marshall.
I have a motion and a second. That last number was, I think, misstated. It should be $6,906,672.94. Is there any discussion on this motion? Yes, so please come to the microphone up front. Direct your comments to me. And before you speak, I'd like you to identify who you are and what road you live on. The microphone's right there.
You go right ahead, darling.
But, no, please.
I'll introduce myself if you introduce yourself.
I'm Joshua Smith. I'm the moderator.
You're the moderator. Thank you, Joshua.
Please talk right into the microphone like you did. That was great.
Why do we need all this money taken away from what we've already had? Where did the money go?
Thank you. That's a great question. Do you want to take that?
What happened was,
Ms. Marshall, so could you, again, direct your comments to the moderator and speak right into the microphone?
okay. Basically, when we put together the FY 25 budget, which is the budget cycle in which we are now operating, early in the process of putting the budget together, there was a miscalculation in the levy capacity. In other words, we thought, okay, based on calculations that were done at the time, that we could spend $340,000 than we should spend. In other words, we're limited in what we can spend by 2.5. So we thought the number was more robust than it turns out it is. We've also found out in our tax receipts since FY25 started that we are below our usual expected payment schedules. In other words, usually we have 96% of all taxpayers paying their bill. We're down in the 80s of percent of individuals paying their bills. So we have a little problem with the amount of money coming in, or what we would call revenues, and we have, in our budget, we put together a budget that was too rich, okay, for what we were allowed to spend under 2.5. I wish that weren't true, but it is. So finding out that information, we obviously, working with the Department of Revenue, the Finance Committee, and so forth, the assessors, we knew that we had to reduce the budget. We're not happy about having to reduce the budget, but what we tried to do is spread the hurt around, knowing some things about attrition in personnel, knowing some other things that are happening that we feel we'll just have to do without. So our recommendation is the one that we read into the record. And I'm sorry to say that I'm probably the least happy that we have to reduce the budget, but it is something that we are required to do to come under the levy in order to set the tax rate that would be fair and an honest representation of 2.5.
Thank you. Did you have a question? Speak into the microphone, please.
Richard Barca, 68 Church Lane. My question was going to be, what happens if we vote no on this? And I think Ms. Maureen addressed that a little bit. The money's got to be cut. Yeah, what happens if we vote no and say, no, don't move that around?
Thank you. Dr. Marshall, can you answer that?
A man that I could dream about. If we were to say, don't cut that budget, we would be happy to respond with, we'll pass a 2.5 override for $400,000 and we can fund the budget. If I thought you would all stand and cheer about a 2.5 override, I would be really happy. We don't think that necessarily that is the right decision without giving the electorate a lot of time to think about if we ever have to override 2.5. So somebody's sitting over there saying no already. So if you vote no, okay, you would leave us with a budget that the Department of Revenue would say, you cannot set your tax rate until you pass a 2.5 override, which has to be by ballot and is a process that would be far too lengthy for us to go without any money because we can't give you a tax bill that's real. So as much as I would love you all to say, yeah, go for an override, Maureen, and we're going to vote with you, I can tell you you're not going to vote with us. So if you vote against the motion, then that is nothing I can even imagine, but I will fantasize that we will start working on an override. So to vote yes leaves us cutting the budget, backing into a proper number, and then being able to set the tax rate, send out tax bills, and begin our new budget work on FY26. It's a rude awakening, and people will say, how did you make that mistake? I would tell you, as you look at all of the people who are sitting up here, we did not sit around in the other room and say, it was them, it was them, it was them. We didn't. And I said, if it makes anybody happy and it's easier, just blame me. It was a universal mistake. We just didn't, we looked at the number that was presented and we thought it was correct. Obviously it was not. So the mistake lies obviously with the leadership. That's me. I own it and I will accept the responsibility. But I'm here tonight to tell you that the hardest responsibility is to cut the budget and back into a new, budget that will require potentially a new staffing pattern and potentially, not doing some things that we really would have liked to have done.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Yes, sir.
Edward Kelly. So the question is, did we think we had more money so we inflated the budgets, or were the budgets pretty similar to last year's budgets? So now we're going to be receiving less services across the board in all these departments? And then the other question too is, did Quabbin not participate in this reduction in budget? It seems like Quabbin every year keeps taking more and more money, and we keep getting the excuse that there's less kids, less state funding. But at what point is Quabbin going to reevaluate the reality of the situation and scale their school system appropriate to the level of kids we have, so the rest of the town doesn't have to keep taking cuts for the school system?
Dr. Marshall, would you like to answer those questions?
I'm happy to attempt to answer them, but of course we have the chairman of the Quabbin Regional School District Committee sitting here, and I don't want to upstage him. I would just tell you that we cannot unilaterally, because we are in a regional school district, we cannot unilaterally change the Barre assessment without obviously the other 5 towns agreeing. And not only that, they can't agree after the fact because the law allows us once the budget is set, the district budget is the district budget. So we cannot unilaterally go after the budget tonight and say, let's cut $500,000 out of the school budget. We can't do it. It's against the law. So that's not appropriate. To go into the idea about can't we just cut that budget every year or do something with the budget so we'll have more money for other things? I would give the floor to the chairman of the school committee if he feels or you feel that's appropriate. Otherwise, I will sit down.
Well, I think there was another question that didn't get answered. Maybe Dan, you can answer that other part of his question, which was, were budgets cut back in June, or were budgets increased in June? Are we losing services that we were going to increase, or what's happening here?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dan Jewell, Woods Road. I chair the Finance Committee. To answer that question, it's complex. The budget that was put forth at annual town meeting in June was an appropriately funded budget for substantial changes within the town, where we have new contractual obligations to our police department, fire department, DPW. We have increased costs of fuel. We have increased costs of utilities. Overall budgets are increasing. So the budget that was presented to the town put everything in line to have appropriately level funded services at the levels you see today. By reducing some of these line items, we will be, holding back some positions that are open where they will not be filled until the new fiscal cycle starts. And that's to help keep the town right now under the 2.5% levy limit.
Thank you. Any other discussion of the article? Seeing none, I think we can move to a vote. This only requires a simple majority. I'm going to start by asking for a voice vote and see how hard this is going to be. So, all those in favor, does everyone understand what we're voting on? We're voting on Dr. Marshall's motion to reduce all of these budgets by large numbers. Everyone understands? Okay. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed to the motion, please say nay. The motion carries. Thank you. That takes us to Article 2. This is about a transfer from Capital Stabilization to purchase a snowplow for the Department of Public Works. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, Mark Reginas, Spring Hill Road. I move the town to transfer, the sum of $7,500 from Capital Stabilization Fund for the purpose of purchasing and equipping a snowplow for the use by the Department of Public Works.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of this motion? Seeing none, I guess we can move to a vote. This also requires just a simple majority because it's not the general stabilization fund, it's a specific capital stabilization fund. So we'll start with a voice vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The motion carries. Thank you. Article 3 regards a transfer from Capital Stabilization to pay off a balance of a fire truck matching grant. Do I have a motion?
John Dixon, Worcester Road. Mr. Moderator, I move the town transfer the sum of $26,000 from Capital Stabilization to fund the town's share of a local match grant to fund the remaining balance of the grant used to purchase a fire truck.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of this motion? Seeing none, I guess we can move to a vote. As with the last one, we're going from Capital Stabilization, so this only needs a majority. We'll start with a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The motion carries. There were only 3 articles on the special town meeting warrant, which means that I would entertain a motion to dissolve the special town meeting. I hear such a motion. Do I have a second? All those in favor of dissolving the special town meeting, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you for coming out.